Hello everyone, and in this talk I will present our findings about long-term fish growth changes in a nuclear power plant cooling lake with my co-authors Vytautas Rakauskas, Max Lindmark, Andrius Steponenas, and Vytautas Kesminas, who have helped with the data collection and analysis. So the reason we are here in this session is because we generally expect that as climate warms, fish will become smaller. There have been many experiments and theoretical studies showing that declining body size is an expected universal response to warming. However, temperature size rule, which is the expectation that at warmer temperatures fish are growing fast as juveniles but end up with a smaller adult body size, which is what we see in this plot here, it's an experimental finding. They are often seen in experiments, but experiments are very different from natural populations. They have controlled feeding, no predation, environmental stochasticity. So the question is, are these findings relevant to natural populations? We need data on climate change experiments in the field. In a way, to understand and predict how natural ecosystems will respond to climate change, we need long-term observations that account for acclimation, intergenerational plasticity or adaptation, and also a diverse range of ecosystem-level responses to temperature, and also look at different species because responses might be different across species. And so we do have this kind of study case in Lithuania in a large lake, Drūkšiai Lake, which for many years had a huge nuclear power plant built on it and operational on it, and which this power plant has actually been closed about 10 years ago, and the lake temperature has cooled down. So the reason it's a unique experimental system because it's a very large lake, 45 square kilometers, maximum depth of 33 meters. It used to be quite oligotrophic. And the temperature change has also been quite dramatic. So when the nuclear power plant started to operate in 83, the temperature started rising. In fact, at the peak of the operation, the maximum temperature in summer was almost 2.5 degrees higher. And then the power plant was closed in 2009, and since then the temperature returned to ambient. So we sort of have this kind of temperature profile, and we can see what happened when the temperature increased by nearly 2 degrees, and what happened when the temperature cooled down again. And we have a lot of data in this lake with regular gill netting surveys that have been conducted by the team of over the last 20 years, but also we've done a lot of digging into old journals and collected a lot of data for these species. So basically here we will look at 5 common species and we will look at their length at age at capture. So we determine age from scales. We don't look at otolith growth history for these 5 common species: vendors, perch, roach, bream, and pike. You can see the sample sizes are actually quite big. In some cases, we have almost 4,000 individuals. Maximum ages of these species also differ, so we have a whole range of life histories. So this is the model that we are going to use, and we are applying Bayesian analysis to estimate the coefficients. But basically, we are just focusing on this age and temperature intercept. And there could be 4 different responses of growth to temperature. This one, the bottom left, is actually consistent with the temperature size rule here. So this basically means that the small individuals grow faster, but as they get older, the maximum size actually is smaller. So that means that the intercept is positive here. The intercept of temperature is positive, but the slope is negative. But there are all sorts of possible other combinations in that we might expect that maybe the juveniles grow slower, but then they grow faster as adults, and so on. So from these 4 possible intercept and slope combinations, only one of them is consistent with temperature size rule. And that is that the intercept is positive and the slope is negative. And so for each of these 5 species, this is what we've done. We calculated these intercept and slopes. And What do we get? Again, just to remind that this is the intercept. We expect it to be positive, and this is a slope. We expect it to be negative. So a species had a consistent temperature size rule type growth if both the estimates of the intercept and the slope are in this wide area. Okay, so what do we find? All possible combinations for these 5 species. Vendus is the only one that is actually consistent with temperature size rule. Perch goes this way. Bream actually has them both the opposite responses, and roach has these responses, and pike doesn't have much response at all. And we can actually see that in the growth curve. So basically, if we just plot the predicted growth with all the data, we can see that indeed in Vendus juveniles or in Cisco juveniles are smaller, are bigger in warmer conditions, but adults are smaller, whereas for all other species, responses go all over the place. So the take-home message and significance is that temperature does affect fish growth and size, but that in real ecosystems, temperature effects affect so many processes, we really cannot necessarily expect the temperature size rule consistent growth changes. But this might have an even bigger effect on the ecosystem because different species will change in size in different ways. Either way, we need intergenerational long-term empirical data, so please keep all your old journals safe because someone at some point will need them. And with this, thank you for your attention, and I would like to thank our funding body, European Union funds.